Hey everybody, in computer science principles, Mr. Bigelow here, of course. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I am going to be completing the Unit 4 project. This is going to be a sample. Obviously, yours should not be exactly the same as mine. Um, but this is going to serve as a review of variables, conditionals, and functions, the three topics in this unit. And so I'm just going to get started by showing you what I came up with as my plan for my project from part one. And then I'm going to walk you through step by step the process of how I'm going to build the screen and code the app. And as you watch this, I want you to follow along and fill in the video worksheet that goes along with this so that you can submit it at the end. Okay? Thanks very much. I'm going to switch over to my notebook where I filled out the flow chart and I built or drew out a sample app screen. All right, so for my app, I decided to ask the question, or rather to answer the question for the user, is Red the imposter? And so this is gonna be themed around the game Among Us. It's a computer game and an app that has been pretty popular the past few months. My guess is that most of you have heard of it, but if not, all you need to know is that there are different colored players and you're trying to figure out who are the imposters. There's 1 to 2 people who are kind of sabotaging and killing other players when they're not looking around this ship. And then you have to figure out who did it. So there's something called venting where you can kind of like crawl through a vent, but only the imposters are able to do it. And so I'm making one variable called vent, and vent is either going to have the value yes or no. Excuse me. And the user of the app is going to be able to decide whether vent is yes or no. And that's saying if they saw red, vent. And then killed is another variable, and that's going to be a number. And it's going to represent the number of people that the user saw red kill. So if red killed 1 person and our user who's using the app saw it happen or saw red near the body, then they're going to change this value to 1. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, even if you don't know the game, but even so, we're just going to keep moving here. So we've got our 2 variables. Then I decided that if vent is yes, so if you literally saw red vent, right? If that's true, they're definitely the imposter because only the imposters can vent. If that's false, then we go and take a look at the kill variable. If killed equals 0, if that's true, then red is probably not the imposter because they didn't vent and killed was 0. But if that's false, if killed is 1, and that's true, the app's going to say, hey, are you sure that you saw that correctly? Because you didn't see them vent, you saw them near the body 1 time. Like, it's possible that they got framed, right? Did you see it correctly? But if that's false, that means that killed wasn't 0 and it wasn't 1, so it's more than 1. So the red is definitely the imposter if you see them near the body 2 or more times, right? So that's the flow chart. That's kind of the decision-making process that we're going to be going through here. I also have my kind of sketch of the app screen. So at the top, it's going to have the Among Us logo, and I'm going to have the little red character right here, and it's going to say, is red the imposter? It's going to ask the user for their name. It's going to say, did you see red vent? And it's going to say, how many people have you seen red kill? Both of these will be answered with drop-down menus. And then down here is going to be a text box where the results will appear as the user uses the app, okay? So now I'm going to walk you through step-by-step how I'm actually going to code this and design the user interface on code.org. So I'm going to pause again and pull that up. All right, so I'm starting on lesson 13, bubble 2 on code.org. And just so you're aware, if you kind of are one of those people who pays attention to the details, as I'm sure most of you are, on Schoology, we're just calling this all lesson 12, but code.org breaks this up into lesson 12, 13, and 14, even though it's one project. So I didn't want to have all those different folders on Schoology, so we're just calling it lesson 12. But now we actually technically on code.org are in lesson 13. So we are going to create the screens that we designed in step 6. I already went ahead and started this. So I grabbed 2 images, put them on the screen, and then I found the URL of pictures from online that I wanted. I went to image, choose, link to image, and typed in the URL right there, or really copy and pasted. I didn't type it in. But I'm going to pull that off my screen now that I have that already. And let's see what I want. I want a text area to go right here. Oh, I also changed the theme to blue steel because I thought that matched with Among Us pretty well. But you can use this if you want as a starting point. So right here, the text is going to say, is Red the imposter? Okay. I want that to be a little smaller, and I want the text to be bigger. And I want this to be centered. Okay, so that's pretty good. So I'm not gonna make you watch me do all of this, so I'm gonna pause right now, and then when I come back, hopefully it's all done. All right, so now you can see I finished up the app screen. Didn't spend too much time on it. We've got is Red the imposter. I made a, let's see, what was that? A label that says your name, and then I put a text input next to it. I put another label that said, did you see Red vent? And then I put a drop-down menu, and the options here are yes or no. And then I said, how many people have you seen Red kill? I have options from 0 all the way to 6. And then down here, I put a, what did you call it? A text area. And I said, results will appear here. For the important objects that I'm going to be using in my code, I gave them a important ID. So here I have name input, I have vent input, I have killed input, and then I have text output. That's where the text is going to go at the end. Okay, so now I set up my screen. So now I'm going to move on to bubble 3. And in bubble 3, we are going to switch to code mode, and we're going to create the variables for our app. So this is going to be a review of variables. And so we're on the variables screen right now. There's a couple different ways we can use variables. What I'm going to do is I'm going to initiate or declare a variable and assign an initial value to the variable. So I'm going to drag this over here. I'm in text mode right now, but I want to be in block mode. Oh no. All right, so I'm going to delete that, switch to block mode, then bring this over here. Okay, and I'm going to make the first variable, what did I say it was going to be? It's going to be called vent. And since this is going to have yes or no, which is a string, I'm just going to start it off with an empty set of quotation marks to show that it is going to be a string, right? Because strings are in quotes. And then I'm going to have another variable that's going to be called killed. And since this is a number, I'm going to start it at 0. That's kind of a good place to start. And then our code will change the value later if it needs to. Okay. I also know at this point that I'm going to need a variable for some of the text that's going to appear in this text output. So I'm going to make one more variable called text. And I'm going to set that up as a string so it's ready to go. Okay, so there's my variables. We created the variables. We're going to move on to bubble 4. Bubble 4 is where we create the update screen function. We're going to add the conditional statement to the function. What decision will your app make? What variables will be used in making that decision? So we've got all of these function apps now that are in our toolbox. We want to set up a function. So we're going to drag this top guy over here. This defines a function. It gives a name to a set of actions you want the computer to perform. Wherever we want the function to be run, we're going to put this. We're going to call the function, but we'll do that later. All right, so I'm going to pause, fill in my function, and then show you what I've got. All right, so let me show you what I've got here. First of all, I realized that I needed another variable called name, which will take the name that the user enters as their name. So I set that up as well. And then down here, we have our function called update screen. Again, function came from the function menu in the toolbox. And To set up the conditionals, we need an if statement. That's in control in the toolbox. We've got these if statements. You can press plus or minus if you're in block mode to make more else ifs appear, right? So I can click this and I click the minus. Now I have it stuck as an else if, so I'm going to go to text mode and delete that. There we go. Okay, so the last one should usually be an else. So it's a catch-all, it catches everything else. So I made this if statement based exactly off of my flowchart that I had already showed you. So it started with the top question. If vent is yes, so, and if that's true, the text, you saw red vent, red is the imposter, is going to show up on the screen. Else, if vent is no and killed is 0, the text red is probably not the imposter is on the screen, and so on and so on, okay? Important things to note here is that when you're setting up a variable and you want to change the value, you use one equal sign. If we're just comparing if two things are equal or not, we use, in the math toolbox, we use double equals. And that's equality operator. It tests whether two values are equal. It returns true if the value on the left-hand side of the expression equals the value on the right-hand side of the expression, and false otherwise. Okay, so that's exactly what we want. And if it's true, it'll do this. Then it'll just stop. But if the first thing's false, it'll try the next one. If that's false, it'll try the next one. If that's false, it'll do this last thing. So as soon as one statement is true, this if statement stops working. Afterwards, then we actually are going to set the text of the text output, which remember is this box down here. We're going to set that to say hello plus the user's name, period, space, and then the text. Whenever I'm calling a variable, I'm not using quotes. Whenever I want to type in, text that I want to appear in the box, I'm going to use quotes because I'm creating a new string. I'm not using a variable that I already created. So that should set the text of the text output to, whatever this is. And I put text here at the end, and text is a sentence that was set up by this if statement. All right, so that's all inside this function. And let's see, did we do everything up here? Yep. We have to add a comment to that function explaining what it does. Let's see if we can find comments in here. It's in the function tool. So we've got comment. I'm going to drag it right above this. And then whatever we put on this line after the / is going to be a description of some code. It's not something that actually is run by the computer when you click run. So I can just write this function checks conditionals and updates the screen. Something simple like that. Okay. And there we go. Let's move on to bubble 5, add on events. Okay, so now we're going to add on event blocks, and in each on event block, I'm going to update the appropriate variable and add a call to the update screen function. So for this, I'm going to be going to the UI controls, and I'm going to need several on events. All right, I'm going to start to put these in here without making you watch, and then I'll show you what I did afterwards. Okay, so I must say I needed to adjust something, so I went back to the top and I changed the variable vent to start as yes, because I realized it's only going to change the value of vent when vent input changes, but it's starting as the value yes. So I had to go up, instead of just doing blank quotes, I changed it to yes. I also had to change the variable name to be called your name, because for some reason the variable name is already being used in the background of code.org. You can see if I change it to name, it says redefinition of name. I never seen that before. I didn't know that was going to happen, but this is troubleshooting, right? This is debugging. I just had to figure out that I needed to change that variable. All right, but what I was trying to show you was that I set up 3 on events because I have 3 different things that the user might change. I have name input, and so I'm going to have this event triggered if the name input changes. I have an event triggered if the vent input changes, and I have an event triggered if the killed input changes. Okay, and each time there's a certain variable that gets updated appropriately, and then we run the function update screen. We have a call to the function. I dragged this over 3 times, and I changed my function to say update screen because that's what I named my function down here. Every time that update screen happens, it's going to run this whole function down here. That's what that means. That's what the use of functions is. All right. So that's all set up. We haven't actually tested it yet, but I think we are ready to. So let's see what happens. I'm going to try it. I haven't tried it yet, so we'll see this together. Click run. Okay, so I'm going to say my name is Mr. Bigelow. Did I see red vent? Uh-oh. Error line 28. Oops, we can't figure out what name is. Reset, reset, reset. Oh, that's because I kept this as name. I didn't update it to your name. Okay, run. Did you see red vent? Yes. How many people have you seen red kill? 3. You saw red vent. Red is the imposter. Let's change that to no. 3. Red is definitely the imposter. If I change this to 1, are you sure you saw red kill? Maybe red was just near body. If I change it to 0, red is probably not the imposter. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. It worked. Okay. Wow, that is awesome. I wasn't expecting that to work so well on the first try. Okay, so that is how this project works. I should probably go back in and add more comments. And there we go. All right, I've progressed my code.org screen to lesson 14, bubble 2. So we've moved on to lesson 14 from lesson 13. And what we're going to be doing the last day of this is having a partner test our app. And in the planning guide, we're going to write down feedback. You can probably do that on separate paper if necessary. Then you're going to update your app with improvements based on the feedback. All right, so there you have it. That's a brief overview of variables, conditionals, and functions. Hope this all makes sense, and I hope this will help guide you over the next couple days to code your own project. Feel free to come back and look at this video if you need to reference it, but each person is going to be making theirs individually, so I thought this would be a good reference to have. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you turn in the worksheet on Schoology, and have a great day.